Welcome back, people, to another episode of the Legacy Podcast. We're in today for episode 133. Now, we've been banging out the solo episodes, but even over the span of doing this series, guests are always something that I like to sort of bring on. One, I get to learn myself, and two, for you guys listening, you're getting a lot of value, a lot of education and knowledge. And even with the topics that we're going to cover today, certainly going to be a very entertaining episode, so to say. So, without further ado, I'll hand it over to our guest. So, if you just want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. No, thank you for that intro, bro. Thank you for having me on. My name's Ibby. I specialize in email marketing. I'm a copywriter by trade, but I've sort of been on the self-improvement way for a few years now, coming up to 4 or 5 years. Initially, I started by getting into the gym, and then I kind of got into like mindset, um, working on finances, that kind of thing, just really trying to become as much of a high-value man as possible. And Josh, we haven't actually spoken about this, but I'm looking to veer more into the self-improvement, actually, like more like life coaching type thing for young men.
Okay. Yeah,
Just working on masculinity a little bit. Still
yeah.
going to be doing copywriting and stuff for my current clients, but it's something that I want to definitely work towards long term. I've realized that's where my passion lies. But yeah, that's basically it in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I can see you definitely being fitted for in regards to a role, 100%. And like I say, even with the skill sets that you have, obviously I've got a marketing business. We both know that the emails, the copywriting, communication with your audience is the first way that you start to impact them. So the life coaching side of stuff, it's good as well. And even on our own sort of personal journeys, like obviously I came back from that trip, reset everything, the avenues of, where we're looking to train, the combat, the mindset stuff, that is all going to be designed to impact more people. So it goes far beyond just, like I say, getting bigger delts, getting abs. It's getting your mind in set, increasing your value as a man, working towards that peak level of masculinity. And that's going to be a good journey to follow, so to say. But I guess for context for you guys listening, me and Ibby, this is actually our, despite as it is as general as the conversation sounds, it's actually our first time on a call. We've actually
Yeah,
known each other going back now since the beginning of lockdown. So it's funny with lockdown because it feels like it's ages away, but at the same time, because it was the first of anything in history, it almost feels like yesterday. It's like a double-edged sword, really. But yeah, lockdown was when we sort of first met, and it was just sort of general chatting, just going over the situation. And I feel like if we open this podcast going back right from the start, you can really sort of see how we conduct ourselves, how we handle certain situations. And if you have faced those problems, which lockdown, all of us guys, we're all in the same boat, you can essentially know how to overcome the battles in the future tense as well. So I guess sort of adversity, what to do when things are outside of your control, taking it all the way back to lockdown, where did you sort of stand with everything then?
in terms of what was going on, how did I react to it?
Literally that, yeah.
Right. So, okay, how deep do you want to get here, bro?
Generally sort of speaking, just when shit hits the fan, what on earth do you do?
Right. When shit hit the fan, first thing was like the adjustment period, right? So I
Mm.
was, for context, guys, I'm 20 years old, I'm going to turn 21 soon. I was still in college back then,
Mm.
and the adjustment period was strange. It messed up a lot. My initial thought, this is how like crazy, and I guess it shows like how our mindset has shifted over time. My initial thought was, fuck, how am I going to work out? How am I going to maintain my gains?
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
just bulked for the last 2 years. I was planning on doing my first ever cut, and I thought, fuck, like, what am I going to do, right?
Yeah.
That was what I initially thought. But honestly, the adjustment period was very quick. Like I know
Mm.
what you're saying that lockdown was a long time, but I adjusted fairly quick because I had gym to keep me busy. I managed to, before prices like were inflated to
Yeah.
hell, I managed to pick up a few weight sets and stuff. So I was working out at home, just focusing on cutting, going out, doing cardio. Obviously, social distancing was still going on at the time. Nowhere was open, so I'll just do cardio. It was actually a very grounding time for me. As strange as it sounds, I look back with a little bit of fondness because it gave me, and I think it gave a lot of you guys as well, the
Mm.
ability to kind of just reflect a little bit and realize like, damn, like we don't have a lot of commitments right now. We've got all this spare time. Like, what do we truly want to do? So I got into like things like meditating and just going ham, working out and reading and picking up all these like little habits that were going to help me long term, and then eventually did help me more than I could have ever imagined.
Yeah, of course. I think as well, like, yeah, it did seem to go on for a long time. And for me, a lot of my frustration was they did it, and then it was like stage one, stage two. Obviously, we have a lot of ties and connections in Bradford. Bradford, you had like certain zones. So there was this one funny time. We'd obviously had lockdown, gyms opened they did that zone, it was like zone one, zone two, zone three. And
Yeah, yeah,
Bradford was a zone three. But if you went to Pudsey, which is where the Ultraflex is, that's a Leeds postcode. That was zone one. So all of us got in his cars and we just went to Bradford. We just went to Ultraflex Leeds, and nobody knew their ass from their elbow. Um, but yeah, it was an interesting time. I think for me, it was almost like a. I won't go as deep because obviously I was staying in my friend's spare bedroom. It wasn't a state of survival as such, but my career back then was a personal trainer. And if your entire career and income comes from the gym, and then you go to
Yeah,
another one, whatever, you have to learn to adapt. Otherwise, you're just going to fall, aren't you? So the adoption thing was certainly something I share with you, and just right, this has happened. I can't change it, and I'll be honest, going back then, you had all like people signing like the petitions and shit like that. And maybe on my part, I should have done, but I never once signed a petition. I never once voted for anything. I never once did anything. All I was thinking is, right, this has happened. How can I make money? How can I grow? And how can I continue to get to my goals despite the odds being against me, so to say? And I think when you understand that adaptation phase is so crucial.
yeah.
And it was generally sort of whether I heard it on a saying, but just simply focusing on things that are within your control. I literally learned that through lockdown, and it's
That's
just
it, bro.
a lesson that I've ever learned since.
I mean, that's literally it. Like you nailed it. I think a lot of people in general, if we look at like outside of lockdown, right? Most
Mm.
people will focus on things that they can't control, which is just a waste of energy, waste of resources. Um, sometimes things happen that aren't fair, sure, but you're not going to achieve anything by complaining that the rules are unfair, etc. You just have to look to move forward. Complaining gets you nowhere. Stagnating gets you nowhere. You have to adapt. You have to move forward. So I think it's interesting that you said you were looking for ways to like kind of supplement your income a little bit and stuff like that. I've just lost out on the gym. I've lost PT clients, whatever. I can't train
Yeah,
in person. How do I make money? How do I do this?
yeah,
I think that shows your mindset was even in a good place back then, bro. Because I know a lot of guys were just straight up complaining and just adopting like lazy habits as well, like not looking to improve, if anything, declining, smoking weed all day. I mean, do you remember how many people were just drinking for the sake of drinking?
honestly,
Crazy, isn't it?
you've got to remember, obviously, we're not affiliated at all whatsoever anymore. But I was staying with one of my old best friends in his spare bedroom, and I was just a completely like a black sheep in that environment. But honestly, sometimes just sitting back and watching them, there was drinking, there was no exercise, there was just their eyes were glued to the TV. So you imagine
Yeah.
their connection with the outside world was purely from the man on the big screen portraying all these fake numbers. So their fear levels, their stress levels, it was through the goddamn roof. And when you pair that with no exercise, no, you don't even have to be. And obviously, me and Ibby were talking about this, like, we meditate, we're open minded, we journal. It's not even just doing things like that. It's just when shit hits the fan, you have to be logical about things. And if you approach stuff with emotion, you're going to be fucking screwed.
That's it, bro.
Um,
You have to look at it analytically, spot on.
yeah.
Spot on. And I think lockdown showed, sorry to cut you off, bro, but I think lockdown showed there were two types of people who reacted, people who adjusted
Mm.
and put the correct kind of foundations in place to move forward and to not let all the shit that was going on at the time affect them. And then there
Yeah.
were people that completely folded, man. Like completely folded, bro. Not just physically. I know people who were really banging the gym, didn't even bother with home workouts, folded mentally as well. And I don't want to sound harsh or anything because I understand it was testing times for everyone, but like I'm saying folded mentally because some people didn't even try. They didn't even
Yeah.
try to work on anything. They just gave up like from the get go because it's unfair. I
Yeah.
mean, that kind of mindset's just not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah. I think as well, like, and this is even like, obviously, I've grown up in foster care. A lot of the family members that I've been told I have, because of the circumstances, they all live a life of excuses, because this happened, I can't do this. And one of, I started this world where, I had a bad card, I had a bad hand of cards and things just wasn't in my way. But one of the simplest things we can get as deep or as not deep as we want in this podcast, you're not a tree. So if you don't like where you are, just move in life. It's really as simple as that. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
you can literally just move. If I don't like where my phone is, I can move it to the left. If I don't like my environment, I will work and it's the most simplest thing. And sometimes most people don't need to be taught new stuff. They just need to be reminded.
I think it goes down also to like people just being stuck in their comfort zones, bro.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
like so it's true, like we have the ability to change any given situation, any given moment, but how many
Mhm.
people refuse to do that because they're so used to the norm? And I know because I'm speaking from experience. In the past, there's situations I've found myself in where I wouldn't adapt. It wouldn't even cross my mind that look, I can change, I can make this situation better for myself because I'm so used to it.
Yeah.
I'm so like within that kind of comfort zone. I think again, so much of life just goes down to like mentality and perspective, bro. I feel like honestly, particularly perspective. I think you could attribute so much to just how you look at things and your
Mm.
response and etc. and things like that.
Yeah. There's a book, I'm not too sure if you've read it. I've got my I have to send you a photo of it, but I've got a board and it's sort of like my feeling amplification board. And there's a book I read, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. And he goes over sort of like
Okay.
wealth principles. And one of the sort of principles he said, if a Sherman tree had the mind of a human, it would only ever grow to be 3 foot tall. Bear in mind, the Sherman tree is the biggest tree in all known existence. And it's
Yeah,
the idea that we are quite literally the fucking apex predator. We can find elements, we can create cures, we can do all sorts of stuff. And yet on the other side of that, you've got people that will talk themselves out of being the best versions of themselves. And it's just almost like flicking that switch. You just got to realize you are your own biggest asset.
that's it, bro. That's it. Where do you think a lot of that comes from as well? I would attribute it to like mostly like limiting beliefs and social conditioning over time and stuff. But it is crazy, man. Like how we view life right now, right, is like our norm. It's so normal to us.
Yeah,
I'm sure you can relate to this, Josh, and probably a lot of people listening that when you look at how other people view things, it's almost crazy to us. But that's their norm, and that's the norm for the majority of people. So where does this come from? Really and
it's
truly.
it's literally you've got to remember obviously the way that your brain forms, even going into like the prefrontal cortex and the actual areas of your brain. When you're growing up, you go through stages. Most people think that you're just born and you sort of just learn stuff as you grow. But even when you're sort of like a couple of months old, your brain is still forming, even when you're literally in the womb. So you're outside these external factors, how your parents are together, if there's conflict, if they're toxic, that's going to have some sort of effect on you, whether that be physically, emotionally, energetically, it could be anything at all. You've then obviously started, and this is where we go into the wealth principles as well. If you grow up in an environment where you're living from paycheck to paycheck, they're penny pinchers, they're cheap, or they live lavishly, that's going to have a direct impact on you. So a lot of this sort of like this cultural programming, yes, which are like, the Rothschilds and the boys upstairs, but most people look way beyond that. But I'm talking
Yeah,
about on a micro level, I'm talking about your mum, your dad. And the
yeah, yeah,
reason why it's so easy to subside is because it's your mum and your dad. Nobody ever wants to think, oh shit, it's my own mum and dad that are stopping me from being
yeah.
creative.
Like they might be wrong. I don't want to. Yeah,
Exactly, yeah.
literally.
And it's almost like and sometimes I've said this before, like I've said this sort of partner, she'll be like, yeah, but it's my mum. And whether it's because I don't have any family that I can sort of rip that band-aid off quite easily, but it is a lot of it. Most of the resistance, if you, for example, not that I know anything about your family situation, let's just say speaking about you generally, you go to your mum and dad and say, look, I want to buy a Lambo in the next year, they're going to laugh at you, sort of thing. They're not really going
Yeah,
to,
yeah, yeah.
there'll be some element, not that they don't want you to do it, but because they're not programmed to understand it. And some of the biggest resistance when you want to achieve these big, big goals, if you are ambitious, that resistance is going to come from the ones closest to you. And I learned that the hard way, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Again, I probably agree with what you said there, bro. It's environment is so much more important than like people realize. I feel like even you're talking about childhood, and you're completely right in that sense. But even like who you keep around you, like your
sure, yeah.
closest, your network, your circle, bro. Like it can literally make or break you. You have to be very careful about who you listen to, whose advice you take in. Are they qualified enough to even be giving you advice on a certain topic? Are they
Mm,
helping you grow? Are they helping you become a better man? Do they bring the best out of you? Are they helping you learn? Are you, and then in turn, are you doing the same for them? You know, again, a lot of people make the mistake when networking. Um, like a little tip for you guys is you can't just network with someone of like high value per se and expect them to give you everything if you're not bringing something to the table. So make sure you're qualified enough to even be in the room and be having conversations with these kind of people. But ultimately, you should look for those qualities within your friends, your circle. And if look, regardless of how long you've known someone, even family as well. Look, I'll be honest with you, I have family members I don't really speak to a lot because they just don't really have much to offer. Like they're so stuck in their ways and they're so close minded and they're so it's like it is what it is type thing. I have to look out for myself. No one else is going to do it for you. So even if you've known someone for a long time or whatever, don't feel bad about leaving them in the past. Growth is a real thing. You outgrow certain people, even if, like I said, if they're family, friends you've known for a long time. You have to be very, very careful about who you surround yourself with.
Yeah, yeah. It's like that image. I'm sure a lot of us has all seen it. A shark and a fish tank will only grow to a 3 foot long, but yet in the ocean it'll grow upwards of 15 to 20 foot long. The environment
Yeah,
is so important. Even now, I always used to sort of, especially because as I said, I'm not affiliated with this guy that I used to know. He was literally first ever when I came into care, first ever friend I ever made at primary school. So from primary school to 20, 21 years old, joined at the hip. I lived in a spare bedroom, anything. And that sort of living from paycheck to paycheck, constantly focusing and chasing money, it sort of rubs off on you. And then before you know it, you're wanting to try to live a life of false status, living needing other people's validation. And you cut certain ties with people, you get rid of certain people, you realize how much things change. Obviously back then, especially my starting PT career, was earning literally nothing. Because I started off in an apprenticeship, you see, there was times where, because it was 350 an hour back then, very, very minimal.
yeah, fucking hell, yeah,
Yeah, there was times literally when I didn't even have money to get a taxi. So what I'd have to do is, because I was doing a full open till close, I would have to lock the doors from the inside and I would sleep on the gym floor and then go into my next shift because I didn't have the money to get a taxi. So when you paired that environment with the people around me that was seemingly earning more than me, focusing on money and being quite like stuck in their own ways, they would make me feel like I wasn't good enough, sort of thing, like they was above me. As
yeah,
soon as you sort of just cut ties, and that's a very particular experience. It doesn't have to be that. As soon as you just cut ties with those people, just get rid of them. Be surprised just how much you can elevate. And like you just said there, with certain people not resonating with you, if someone doesn't fit my future, then don't get a place in my present. And it's as simple as possible. I've got a million and one stories I could tell you all, which I'm sure will come in due time. But if they don't fit my future, you don't get a seat at the table now.
I love that quote. I might have to steal that.
Yeah. Certain
It's spot on there.
there's a technique you can use to say it. Like if you say it to someone and if they meet that with resistance, you already know they're not meant for you. But if they support it, like you just said then and they resonate with
Yeah,
it, it's such an easy way to test it with people.
it's a good point. It is. It
Yeah,
is.
100%. But yeah, I mean, like I said, we covered sort of adversity and sort of what to do when things are out of control. When it comes to sort of, especially even with the way that the world is moving, we've obviously got certain figures out there. I feel like masculinity it's under attack, but it's almost got the firepower to not be attacked either way. But I feel like when it comes to
So,
increasing your value as a man, looking into, what can be the best version of you, where do you sort of stand with the elements of which you can start to grow as a man, so to say, in this current world? Let's make it sort of in today's society.
yeah, sure. So for me, there's four kind of key areas, and I think we've spoken about this before, that a man can work on, which are undoubtedly going to kind of propel him to where he wants to be. Let's
Mm.
break those down in no particular order: finances, mindset, physique, and religion or spirituality, depending on what you believe in. I think now that's what I've sort of the conclusion I've reached after years of playing this game. If you master those four things, you're going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah,
And
100%.
and I think a lot of people kind of can overcomplicate the journey a little bit and look for to do different things and whatnot. Look, if you just honestly sit down, if you break down those four things and you look to kind of commit to being a better man, work on those four things, I promise you're going to see results. I promise you. You
Yeah,
can't not work on those four things and become a much more high value man.
yeah, yeah. I think as well the beauty of that is those four elements are universal to each one's self. But for those four elements to work, you've almost got to have that initial seed, the seed that will plant the tree. You have to have that seed, and that is translated into your purpose. So once you have your purpose,
Mm.
you then place your focus onto these elements, which will allow you to increase your value over time. Purpose is so important, and I think, like we've mentioned before, I even did this on a quick clip. Like literally, as a man, your purpose is everything. Outside of it, everything else is completely synthetic. Really, when we speak about it, the only thing that we have is our name and the skin on our body. Everything else, wife, kids, family, they can all choose to leave you at any given time. You can lose your job. again, as we spoke about with lockdown, we both lost it. I lost my job. There's loads of little stuff, but as long as you have your purpose, your set of core beliefs that you know to be true, that you want to work towards, you will not only lose the people that you need to lose, but you'll also in turn attract the people that need to be with you. So it's,
Mm.
even as well, like I think it goes into like partners as well. We live in a society, and this goes for, I know there'll be some women listening, but this goes for like partners as well. A lot of people will chase partners where they'll have gaps in their life. It could be validation, certain like gender roles, it could be finances. And what they'll do is they'll chase other people to fill these gaps for themselves. But I think when it comes to increasing your value as a man, you have to do your own work first. Like right now,
Yeah,
every single day, I tell myself, I'm the bollocks, I'm the man. The world, as Scarface being my favorite movie, the world is mine. And
yeah,
because I say those things myself, I attract people that not only, not so much, they don't even have to agree with it, but they understand that and they allow those things for to happen, so to say.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, definitely sort of focusing on your purpose is extremely important.
Bro, I just want to add like something quickly to that. I agree with everything you've just said, and I think you articulated that perfectly. One thing I would say, like a little bit of advice is, and I'm sure you can relate to this, bro. When we were like 16, 17 or whatever,
Yeah.
let's be honest, we were probably just pedestaling kind of women, thinking about women all the time. How can I get
All the
girls,
time.
this, that, and the other,
Yeah.
right? Here's what a lot of guys don't realize. There's absolutely no point doing that. When you're young, you should just be working on yourself. Don't even worry about girls. I promise you, if you work on yourself enough, they're gonna come.
Yeah.
There's you're wasting valuable years,
Mm.
chasing women, etc., doing all this other stuff. Just work on yourself, become the best version you possibly can be. If you look realistically, because of the way society is now, if you play your cards right, you could be in a very good position by the time you're like late 20s, 30s, whatever,
Mm.
and everyone else, you look at who's around you, kind of chasing girls, partying, doing this, that, and the other, they're off their purpose or they don't even have a purpose. It's going to be a rude awakening for them when they reach that age where you're going to thrive.
Yeah.
Use these years wisely.
Yeah. I think as well, like even we are talking on the other end of the stick now, but initially speaking, me and Ibby, we was no different to you guys. Like I literally started the gym.
Yeah.
My local gym was Flax. It was at 5 lanes. I literally got into it just because I wanted girls. All I wanted was girls.
Same, same, same. Yeah, 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 100%.
It was literally that, and I think of course it was girls, but as well as that, when you look back in hindsight with the knowledge that we have now, it was like at our school we used to have summer and winter uniforms, and I put on a polo, and the polo would just always drown me, and like I'd look at the other guys and their polos would fit them better, so I'd look in the mirror and I'd be like, I'm so skinny, and then it was literally like I wasn't allowed to join the gym, so I would literally just watch YouTube and I'd be watching like Mike Chang six pack shortcuts,
Yeah, yeah,
next,
yeah, yeah.
and I'd be there just doing like 300 sit ups a night, 50 push ups, and just thinking I'd just turn into a unit and just eat loads of mashed potatoes when I could get them as seconds.
That's
So
it, bro. We've all gone through the kind of Mike Chang phase. I
yeah,
think
yeah,
literally that's probably the first video all of us watched. How
yeah.
can I get a
I
six?
wonder- Is he still around? Do you think? I wonder if he's got like an Instagram or something like that. But yeah, I think obviously what we were just focusing on then was obviously just as phases as growing up then, and if we can sort of start off so much wanting everybody that everybody wants right now to where we are right now, it just means that increasing your value, becoming the best version of you, it's within your control. So if we started out where we
Mm.
did, so can you. And it was really sort of that was an actual turning point for the Ascension project, which I was working on, which we spoke about quite well. It was understanding that I want to be at the other side of the hill and sort of work to myself and achieve greatness. But if I can do it, someone as average and as common as me, I want to be the coach and the individual to help you get there too, but in your own definitions and goals and desires, so to say.
That's it, bro. That's it. And like you were saying as well, it's realizing that you are capable of doing whatever you want, man. Like
Mm.
Josh, I'm sure you can relate to this. Our genetics weren't that good when we first got into the gym, man. I'm still skinny
Yeah.
fat, right? Like I store fat on my obliques, I was skinny, like but honestly, guys, I know it sounds cliche, but if you dedicate yourself enough to a cause, you're gonna get there.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times and I can certainly relate to this when I was younger, we look at these big goals and we feel kind of overwhelmed, like where the hell do I even start? How do I make more money? How do I build up my physique? How do I gain this, that, and the other? It's just breaking down the goals, guys, into like smaller steps, taking the next logical step. So don't let, if you're looking at like the top of the mountains, so to say. Don't let that kind of overwhelm you. Look at like the first step you need to take, the first climb, and the second bit and the third bit. Break it down, guys. It's doable. Anyone can do anything they want. I promise you. Again, it's going to sound cliche, but
Yeah.
it's the truth. If you just work hard enough for it, you are going to get it.
Yeah, I think those in business will obviously be aware of this lesson, but even it's a lesson that I learned in business that I apply to every other area. And I pretty much anything that I desire and want on a high scale, I will just reverse engineer and work backwards. So, for example, if you want, I'm sure every man has his dream car or some sort of location he wants to go to. But if
Yeah.
something costs a certain amount of money, you have to think as a business owner, how many clients, how many sales do you need to get there? And I think learning to reprogram your mind to think sales or think quantities to equal outcome, that will allow you to essentially piece together the steps, like Ibby just said, those small daily actions that you need to be doing. Is it, qualifying prospects? Is it booking calls? Is it as simple as reading, 2 pages of a new book? It could be anything at all. But if you can actually first go back to get your purpose, set your goals, understand what it is that you want most, you then, instead of thinking, how do I do that? You think sort of, right, when do I start? And what's the next step that we need to do? Working backwards is something that's, at least with me personally, helped me a lot with my goals.
I think
Um,
it would help a lot of people as well. You know,
yeah, I think
just
as well,
exactly like you said, bro. Working backwards, breaking it down, and sorry, bro. Working backwards, breaking it down, and you carry on. I've lost my
yeah, I think as well, like when you look at these goals, let's just for keepsake, you want a nice car. It could be a Lambo or even a watch. I'm sure. Are you a watch guy? Do you like your watches? I can't. Yeah,
getting into it. It might be a hobby down the line.
yeah. Well, like I said, I'm big on my watches. I'm big on my cars and stuff like that. Let's just say you want one of them things because, again, going back to obviously like the whole cultural programming, sort of like your environmental programming, it's very easy to want these things and feel defeated before you've even started. And you think, oh well, how can someone like me, how can someone like Josh Clark go out and get a watch like this when everybody else around him says it's not possible? But if you can actually learn to work backwards
Yeah,
and break things down, that's when it's like, oh wait, it's not actually that hard, is it? And as well as that, like if there are certain people in this world that can do these things, that can, retire their parents, that can do whatever they want to do, they all breathe oxygen, they all have the same blood, they all go home and they all have to leave at one point. So if they can do it, why can't you? And that's something that I'm always, not even in an envious way. Like I see people, Ibby is obviously very skillful in his email marketing and copywriting and stuff like that. So I look at Ibby as like it is a mix of like friendly competition, but it's also sort of influence. So I think, right, if Ibby can be good at this, why can't I be good at this as well? And it's always looking at this and again, power of your environment, choosing people to push you to do more.
yeah, that's it, bro. And I love how you. I think if more people just looked at like people who are in a position where they want to be with that mindset, bro, they'd get so much further than just jealousy and envy and even
Yeah.
like anger and hatred and these weird like negative emotions that some people get for some reason when they see people with
Mm.
something they want or where they want to be. Bro, just use it as inspiration. Like you said, everyone's human. If they can do it, why can't you? Like
Yeah.
you can literally break down goals like that. Identify what does this person have? What have they done that I haven't?
Mm.
We're lucky, bro. We live in an age where we have the internet and we have all these books, etc. We can learn directly from some of the greatest minds in the world. For example, right, take Ray Dalio's book Principles. If you don't know anyone to network with, if you're not of high value yourself per se, get a book, bro. Network with someone that way. You're literally learning their journey. You're seeing the steps they took.
Yeah.
You got to think outside the box and use the resources that you have to your advantage. We live in an age, like I said, where it's so easy to pick up information. It's so easy to connect with so many people and grow in that sense. And look at these people for inspiration. Use them for inspiration, motivation, whatever you want to call it. But the
Yeah.
worst thing you can do is look at these people and think, fuck him. He's where I want to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't do it. Fuck him. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's just such a weak mindset. It's
Yeah.
not doing you any favors.
I think as well, I don't even know, it might have been the Foyer Law's power. Don't think there's a direct law in it, but one of the things that I've just been aware of is that people speak based off of reflections. A very, very simple analogy of this would be, let's just say a guy and his girlfriend, typical like sort of beta male, they're walking down. The girl says, and there's another guy walking past, absolute unit. And the girl says, oh, he's got big delts. And the beta male will then say, oh, he's on steroids. I can do better, but I can 20 kilos. People speak based off of reflections. because
Good
what he's
genetics.
saying or even we could get into the calf battle. What
Yeah.
he's saying in that situation is literally, if it was said at him, for example, if it was all on the other foot, that's exactly how he would feel. So when someone's saying, "Oh," a typical one, especially in Bradford, is whenever everybody has like a nice car or nice things, it's daddy's money or your parents bought it and stuff like that. People speak
Or they
based
jump to the fact that, oh, it's a drug dealer. I've seen
on
it, bro.
100.
It's
I
like
have.
it's just like it's basically downplaying their achievement.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest demises of humanity is people think with their eyes. Eyes are for looking, not for thinking with. My lifestyle is very active where I do dress up smart where possible, but for the most time I'm in a night tech, I'm in a tracksuit, and literally I've
Yeah,
got two phones. The amount of people, like, for example, when I went and did my theory test and then I did my driving test, you've got to put all your stuff
yeah.
in lockers, and I said you've got to put your phone in a locker, and then I pulled my other one out and I was in a tracksuit, and then her face just dropped.
Trap phone.
Exactly, yeah, literally. And I did it at Thornbury as well, so you already know it's a
uh,
rough area. But
yeah.
people thinking with the eyes, it's a funny one. But once you're aware of it and you know how to
No,
play
yeah.
the game, you can play the game back at them. So it's
That's it, bro. That's it. Like a lot of people, and I'm happy you mentioned that because, for example, we're talking about guys right now. A lot of guys kind of know what women want, but they'll sit there complaining that, oh, women don't want me, life's unfair. They're not working on themselves. They're not doing anything to improve their appearance. They're not becoming stronger mentally. They're not working on their increasing their pockets. They're not building up their body. It's like, guys, if you know the rules, there's no point complaining that they're unfair. Do something about it.
yeah,
If you know the rules, so you know how to win. So put yourself in a position to win. There's no point complaining that it's unfair. Life is unfair. There's so
yeah,
many things that are unfair. So many things that I'm sure you don't like and I don't like. But we just acknowledge it. That's it. And we move on and we use it to our advantage. So it's
yeah,
like going back to the appearance. Sorry, I know I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but going back to the appearance thing. I think I talked about this recently, but a lot of people will say like, I don't give a fuck about what people think of me, and that's good. Don't get me wrong, but you
yeah,
also know for a fact that you're going to get judged on how you dressed and how you appear. So use it to your advantage. Play people by their own game. It's
yeah.
like it sucks, but it is what it is. You're not going to change it, so just use it to your advantage. That's how I look at it anyway. What do you think about that?
Well, completely agree. As cheesy as it sounds, whether I might be in like that big brother or even somewhat your fucking grand would say to you, but the right person will want you for you. If you're working on yourself, the biggest mistake is people chase, they never attract.
Mm,
For example, if you've got a cat and you want to stroke that cat, if you chase that cat, it's going to run and it's going to run away. But if you've got
yeah,
what that cat wants, a fucking ball of wool, a little bit of milk, that cat's going to come to you. You apply that to money, you apply that to women. As long as you're working on yourself and you have what, and this is where we can sort of look into like peak masculinity, increasing your value. As long as you have these values, what people are attracted towards, because we both know how the laws of the universe works with
yeah,
energy and sort of attracting certain wavelengths. We all know that certain stuff will attract certain things. If you put out into the universe one thing, it's going to react accordingly. So if you're working on yourself, certain values, you're going to attract the right woman, you're going to attract the right friend. But if you begin to chase these women, even go as far as chasing friends, you're just going to lose out because some days people are going to love you, some days people are going to hate you. If you and this is from true personal experience, believe me, I've been there. If you need other people to validate you, tell you that you're doing a good job, to sort of like be there and fix the broken gaps that you as a man need to be fixing, when they decide to leave one day, you're going to be left with a hole 10 times bigger than what you initially had at the start. So you need to learn to be doing these things yourself.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
That's it, bro. And like that mindset, it just reminds me of the age old kind of thing about. Can you hear me, bro?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Can you hear
Perfect. I
me?
think
Yeah,
yeah, my thing was just bugging out a little bit, but yeah, yeah, yeah. But that mindset just reminds me of the like age old discussion where motivation versus discipline. And I'm sure you know about that. But
mm,
it's like if you need someone to like constantly be reminding you of you're doing a good job and validate you, you're not going to get very far. Because like
mm,
you said, you're putting all your I suppose like hopes into that person or that thing or whatever. And that's again the problem of when you rely on any external factors. That's why I try and like minimize that as much as possible and kind of rely on myself. Um, no one can take that away from you because it belongs to you. It's yours and yours alone. So anything that if you place your trust in someone, I know this is going to sound quite cold, but if you place your trust in someone, you place your hopes in someone, etc., it could always get snatched away.
yeah,
Um, you know, I like to place myself in the most powerful position possible, and that's by relying on myself most of the time.
Yeah.
I know it might sound a little bit cold and stuff, but that's just honestly, that's just how I live.
I think as well, like now, I mean, we're doing this podcast for free, and I'm hoping that loads of people hear it and listen to it. So I think if you've got this information alone, the infinite sources of knowledge from guys like Tate, Sneeko, Peterson, even from like certain movies like Scarface and like Wolf of Wall Street, if you've got all of these sources where you can take little snippets from for free and you're choosing to ignore it and live the
Mm.
life of comparison and envy, you almost deserve, and this is even called on what you said, you almost deserve to be unhappy. Like you deserve to live that life that you live, you reap the words that you sow. Um, so like a lot of the stuff that me and Ibby talk about, yes, we've only actually learned, like I've only known, like been following like Tate and a lot of like Peterson for the past maybe couple of months, not even like a year or so. A lot of what we're speaking about has been from personal experience. We've had to have the pain, the hurt, the discomfort to
Yeah,
get the knowledge that we're giving with you guys. You are in a position where you can literally fucking make a Google search and find it. Like you can go on YouTube, type in, men's motivation, and
yeah.
you can be fired up just like that. And the world is completely different now.
I might be butchering this, but I think there's one of the 48 laws of power. It was
Yeah.
something along the lines of use the great men in history or something like that, right? Like
Mhm.
basically learn from what they've gone through and
Yeah.
learn from their mistakes and their experiences so you don't have to make those. And like you said, so many people like underestimate the value of the internet, man. There's so many things that you can learn ahead of time where you don't have to endure the pain, you don't have to go through the heartbreak or face those obstacles. If you just use these things in the correct like way of using it, right?
Yeah.
You can save yourself so much wasted time and effort.
100.
But again, going back to like, it's interesting. You mentioned Sneeko, and I don't want to go off like, what do you think of him in terms of? Because for me, bro, I've been watching Tate for a while now. Actually, I was funny enough, and we can go into this if you want. I was in Hustlers University when it had like 1,000 members. I
Yeah.
joined it pretty early, man.
Yeah.
I saw it grow from like 1,000 to 100,000 when I left. I think there's like 500,000 now or something. So it's really taken over. But with Sneeko, bro, I don't know if, and I think this is a good conversation. Sneeko for me, he kind of he's more like red pill kind of
Yeah.
slightly hateful, honestly. Like, don't get
Yeah.
me wrong, he's got good points, and I agree with some of the things he said. But for me, I feel like the Tates and the Jordan Petersons and other people as well, I place them in like a category above. I don't want to get into like any sort of back and forth or whatever, but
Yeah.
it's interesting you say that, bro, because it kind of just goes back to I think be careful of who you take advice from and who you take
Oh,
like your information from. Because I think Sneeko being around all these people might appear to like the naked eye that he is at that level. When I've studied a lot of these guys for a while, like
yeah.
personally, I don't think he is.
No.
Remember, he's still very young. I think Sneeko's like our age, and
Yeah.
we're learning all the time. We're still growing and stuff like that. What do you think of him? Like honestly,
I think he's good, but you've got to remember he doesn't really have a mission, so to say. Like it's not necessarily that he has to have like tens of businesses for me to respect him, but I feel like because he's, and I don't like the word like young, but I just feel like he has a lot of energy and he puts it into points that sometimes don't need to be sort of sometimes explained. And I feel like he's got everything to gain and nothing to lose, and I feel like he's just a little bit chaotic at times. But the good aspect is that he has no filter. So like he just says what he,
yeah,
what he says. But because he
very true.
doesn't, and whether I think deep down he doesn't know this, but I don't think he has a true yet mission. I feel like he got into this by a lot of his money will come from what's that streaming platform? I'm literally not even with the company.
Twitch.
Twitch.
Yeah.
A lot of his upbringing and uprise was from Twitch, which so he'd get money from like donations and subscribers and stuff like that. So he doesn't have like a service or a business. Him as a person, he got to where he is just by speaking his mind. Tay got to where he is because he's multi kickboxing world champion. He's been on shows. He has value to give. Created Hustlers University. So I feel like Tate is just a spokesman, so to say, whereas Tate is a businessman, a leader, and influencer. Sneeko has the potential because, as I mentioned, with the no filter thing, but I just feel like right now, like you say, take things with a pinch of salt, let him go on his journey, and as he
Mm.
grows, because of his no filter, he'll teach us what he learns. So it's just, I think, Sneeko is an investment right now.
Yeah. I like how you said that. To be fair, man, I think you're
Yeah.
spot on. Going back to Tate, bro, I think when you look at like the position he's in, what he's come from, let's break it down. He's the four things we were talking about earlier.
Mm.
He worked on, I suppose he was saying, I don't think he made a lot of money from kickboxing, but he was talking about he worked on like his status and physique, let's say, to an extent through kickboxing. Then came the money when he started businesses to the side. When I think he started the webcam thing
Yeah.
and one or two other things, whatever. Working on his mindset the whole time as well, iron mindset, etc. And now he's found God. I think like if you look at him, he might, for me, bro, he's like the epitome of like high value. Like
Mhm.
I've never seen someone do it like he's done it. For me,
Yeah.
it's crazy to see the journey, man. It really is crazy. Like he's conquered every aspect of his life, and he's now on the way to hopefully conquering religion, etc., and things like that. So for
Yeah.
me, it's like if you want to learn from anyone, bro, learn from that guy. You know,
Yeah.
like this. I'm sure you could relate. Like there's so much that we've also taken from him, and a lot of people get fixated on the kind of controversial things that he said, but you know, there's two sides to every story, and I think his side often doesn't get told in mainstream media and
Yeah.
TikTok and these kind of things.
I think as well, just even just two sides to anything. Like you have to understand that I don't. This sounds arrogant. Again, this is where you can spin it however you want. I don't look up to Tate. I just respect him and what he stands for because, as I mentioned earlier on, he breathes oxygen. He has blood. He's got to leave this earth just as I do. So if he can have all these things, I'm going to work like my board says I will, and I will achieve the things that I do. So it's like if he can do it, why not me? But also, as well as that, you have to understand that with people like Tate, Sneak or Peterson, even Peterson's under fire sometimes. People he is designed to put it's polarized marketing. Content cuts put
Yeah.
out, they have a message, you either follow it or you don't follow it. So you either have a tribe or an enemy. And the idea with this is I genuinely feel like these people are airdropped to create conflict because a weak nation is a divided nation. So I feel
Yes.
like you have to learn to, the second you look up to someone, you're putting yourself in that system of hierarchy of saying this guy's above me, but if I work hard,
It's a good point.
pay my taxes, save and get on the house ladder, then maybe just maybe I will be like them one day. So for me, it's never look up to someone. You can respect them and what they stand for, but you have to be on your own journey, and you have to understand that you have to just simply do what's right for you. So to say, if you live a life for other people, if you try to be and emulate other people, imitation is
Mm.
suicide. Emerson said that
Yes.
it's just a case of looking at what works and applying that to your own journey because the system as we know it, without we don't want to turn this podcast conspiracy based, but the system is not designed to be your friend. You have to learn to understand the system,
Yeah.
play the system, and essentially get out of the matrix, as the infamous man says.
Yeah. Yeah. Take the red for no, no. It's literally understanding the rules and prospering, right? Using them to your advantage. Again, you're not going to do anything by complaining about it. I'm sorry, but this has been in place for like centuries. You sitting at home right now. You're not going to do anything by complaining. Just understand the rules and prosper. Use it to your advantage. And I love how you said that as well because, bro, it's a really good point. I think like again, like I wouldn't say, for example, I wouldn't say I'm a fan of Sneeko. I'm just going back to Sneeko. If Sneeko
Yeah,
hears this, I'm
yeah,
sorry
yeah,
because I really don't have a problem with this guy, but I'm just using him as an example.
yeah,
I wouldn't say I'm a fan of him, but I take the good and I still keep up to date with what he's doing because he
yeah,
does have something to offer. It's very stupid to just kind of brush someone as like on the other side or adopt this kind of tribalistic mindset, which we're kind of forced into again, not to go
mhm,
too deep into it, but divided the nation, like you said. Um, Take the good from the bad, bro. Like I don't
mhm.
agree with everything Tate says either, but I definitely there's a lot to learn from him.
Yeah.
And I think if you going back to, did you ever read Principles by Ray Dalio?
No, no.
Really good book, bro. Highly recommend it. And
Yeah,
what he basically hammers down the point of is just being radically open minded.
yeah,
And his kind of reasoning is you have nothing to lose. You can always take, you can always gain something, you can always learn something, but you're never going to be closed off to the point where you stop taking information or knowledge or basically growing as a person. And it always kind of stuck out with me, and I've adopted it, and I've noticed that even in my life, bro, it allows me to be in like a constant state of growth. And it's the same thing as looking at these polarizing characters. Yes, they're polarizing, but remember, it's for, like you said, it's for a purpose, I believe, which is just marketing. Because polarizing marketing is probably like the best form of marketing nowadays because of how kind of emotional society is and where society is now. But it's just taking the good from the bad. And if you learn to do that from just in life in general, you're going to gain a lot more and you're going to grow a lot more.
yeah, yeah. I think as well, like not things don't really exist until you actually put a label on them. So like someone could say something, whether that is good or bad is purely like derived from how you actually interpret that. Like I could take something as what you say is good. I could equally take something and say it's bad. So good is good and good is bad. Sorry, bad is bad. But you have to learn to put your label on stuff. So it's why it's important to learn the right things. And just because someone, like for example, Tate says stuff, there may be things that I don't agree with or just simply doesn't add value to me. You know, for example, I don't have desires to run a webcam business, so I don't focus on that area of that stuff. But I do want to have supercars. I do want to be
Yeah.
strong. I do want to be fucking top G. So I'm going to focus on that. So it's just because as humans, we're much more than just our actions, our words. We've got our energy, our auras. There are so much
Yeah.
things that we can do that we're compromised of. A human goes into many different branches. So don't think just because you follow a person for what they say, you don't have to be fully committed to them. And I think that's what a lot of the
Yeah, like blindly
oh,
agreeing with everything they say.
it's like, for example, even as such, my missus, she'll say she openly doesn't like it, which is probably quite typical, really. Most females don't, but what the first reaction someone will say is I like tape, they'll say, oh, so you hate women, and it's like where did you connect?
Yeah, it's
It's an interest.
crazy,
Um,
bro. I had an interaction like that yesterday. Actually, it's crazy, bro.
yeah, it's
Even like sorry to cut you off, bro. Even like politics, where I stay out of it.
yeah, 100%. I've
Carry on.
again,
Sorry. Feedback.
whether this is ignorant or again whatever you say, I've never voted in my life and I never will vote because for me I'm not going to vote into a
Yeah.
into I'm not going to vote to have a controller. Like you could have fucking Kermit the Frog, fucking Batista as a prime minister. I'm still going to go out and make.
Batista.
I'm still going to go
Yeah,
out and
yeah,
make
yeah.
money. I don't know how I managed to create those names, but regardless of who you put in that system, I'm still going to go
Batista.
out and do my.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm still going to go out and do my goals.
No,
But
but that's it, bro. That's it.
um, but yeah, I think it's one of them ones as well. Like you have to look at stuff logically, as we mentioned earlier on. If you look at stuff logically, you're always going to see stuff for numbers and data. And I'm not the smartest guy, but I know that if the data is there, then it simply can't be shifted. Whereas if you look at stuff emotionally, then this goes way back to look like lockdown and stuff like that. If you look at stuff emotionally, you're always going to look at things in the wrong way. You're always going to put yourself in a position where you focus on things outside of your control. And a lot of this, I ain't gonna lie, a lot of the literature I'm saying right now is from the chimp paradox. Have you read that one?
No, I haven't, bro. But if it sounds like it's had a big impact on you, I definitely add it to the list.
Yeah, basically, essentially, what it is the chimp by nature is quite chaotic and untamed, and it's sort of you've got the chimp and then you've got the human. And again, I'm paraphrasing heavily here, but if you let everybody has a chimp inside of them, if you let your chimp control yourself in certain situations, your anger is going to be uncontrollable. You're going to be chaotic and like a monkey in a cage. It's just going to bounce from side to side. So if you put a stimulus in front of it, it's just going to go erratic and it's not going to react accordingly. Because if you allow your human to understand certain situations, you're going to be thinking, right, why is this happening? Where did that source come from? What can I learn from this? How can I interpret this situation? And what
Yeah,
can I do to make sure that I can come out of this other end winning? And just whenever you're in a certain situation, if someone angers you, if someone does something, if you lose your job, just think, right, I'm feeling these things. My chimp is saying to do these things, but I'm going to react to it logically. And it just helps me a lot. Like, and everything that I'm saying, you can't just do it instantly. It's not just like a no chimp, not today. It takes time. But this is when, for example, when we're talking, I don't think in one sentence this podcast that we've both said the word we just pause and we take time. Understanding certain situations, just take time to pause, just be sort of like present and literally just understand, do I want to react emotionally or do I want to react logically? And it will help you all so much.
that's it, bro. I think like that's where mindfulness can have such a big impact on someone, and then it did for both of us. If you're sort of letting into that chimp, if you're letting that chimp mindset or urges, whatever you want to call it, kind of overtake you, then you're almost on autopilot mode. And it goes back to what you were saying. We know you can't really trust your emotions. If you were to act on emotions alone, you wouldn't get very far in life. You need logic and you need to think look at things neutrally and objectively. So mindfulness can have a huge perspective shift for a lot of people. I think if you haven't read, I just broke the streak, but if you haven't read The Power of Now, highly recommend it, guys.
Charles did.
Amazing book. There's a few. there's a few books that I could say have like changed my life and changed my mindset, and that is definitely one of them. Maybe the most impactful, which is very surprising because I don't talk about that side of things a lot anymore. But it
Mm.
really did just shift my perspective and help me become more grounded and literally look at things objectively, because it forces you to look at things as the viewer. You're looking at your thoughts rather than reacting to them. And again, thoughts are interlinked with emotion. So if you need a stepping stone, guys, that's it. That book
Yeah.
is just incredible. If the whole world read that book, honest to God, I think it would be a very, very different society that we live in.
Yeah, I think as well, it's just like this is the reason why like I'm invested in mentors. I've got about two, three seminars coming up this month. Being three-dimensional with your problems is one of the most powerful and yet effortless things that you can do. Not only are you massively shortcutting like the systems, we're always taught, things don't come overnight and stuff like that. But if you can be three-dimensional with your problems, you are honestly hacking the system because you're taking and investing in someone that's been where you are and you're learning their lessons. They've made those mistakes and you're essentially investing in them to teach you how to not make those mistakes. And that's a mantra of myself as a coach. That's what I'm always saying for people to sign up with me. But you have to understand that beyond me, I'm investing in business mentors. I mean, me and Ibby with his email marketing. I've invested in Ibby to help me learn about my emails. Loads of little stuff like that just by investing in yourself. And I feel like having someone in your corner, everybody should be having, not even just as a business mentor, but as, for example, Ibby when he branched into his life coaching, loads of little stuff there. Just having someone in your corner is extremely valuable.
I love how you worded that, bro. So there were a lot of good things you just said that I want to quickly add on to. First of all, you know, so many people who are hesitant to like invest in a mentor or
It's
to
crazy.
invest in a way that they're going to gain more knowledge. I think it really just comes down to mindset.
Mm,
It's like you're if you're not willing to invest like a little bit in comparison to everything else going on, you're very happy giving away money to like takeaways and
yeah,
Netflix. And I know I'm going into like the cliche things, but basically wasting your money and you're not even willing to invest in yourself. I think it really does just go to show where your mindset's at. But my mentors are like crucial. I would not know, and I could almost argue books are a sense of mentoring, right? Because it gives you direct access to someone who you probably wouldn't get access to if not.
mm,
Um, but again, it's just learning from them. It's invaluable if you're ready to go through a lot of pain and wasted effort because you're unwilling to invest in yourself. Then good luck is all I'm going to say.
yeah,
Um, you could learn from people's mistakes. Again, you've got the internet, books, all these things, mentors, coaches. Use it to your advantage. It's not you shouldn't be hesitant about investing in yourself. I think again, it just goes back to mindset. It really is invaluable when you consider that you're going to save yourself so much time and effort, and you can't put a price on that, guys. Ultimately, we can go into this afterwards, but ultimately, for me, the only reason I even want money is for the time it buys. So it's like if I can save myself time, it's a no-brainer.
yeah, yeah,
And then going back to also you were talking about uh, like learning from people and things like that. Guys, Josh is a coach, and yet he's still learning all the time. He's investing in himself, which really should go to show you that if you want to get to a certain point, you have to be willing to invest in yourself. And I think your network can also help as well. We talked about this earlier. I don't know if it was, I don't think the camera was on when we spoke about like friends and stuff, but for context, I know a lot of people, but I'd say I have true friends. I have like four or five, very, very small circle, and they all excel in different areas of their life. Not that I've done this on purpose, but it's the beauty of having close friends is I can learn from one of my friends, spiritual things that are going to help me ground when I'm getting caught up in the stresses of life, or when I'm really focused on one area of my life and I'm neglecting another. I can talk to him and he's going to help me, like think it out and etc. and things like that. Another friend for mindset, he's got an exceptional mindset, and I can talk through things with him and stuff. And he inspires me to work on different areas, and it's always just looking to improve, guys. There's so many ways you can invest in yourself. Really, don't sleep on the importance of it, because that shit stays with you for life.
yeah.
You are a life investment. You're the best investment you're ever going to make. So make it
100%.
count.
I think the greatest knowledge lies in knowing that you actually know nothing. A little bit of I'm due to do a couple of YouTube
That was
videos.
Socrates, right?
I think it is, yeah, yeah. Socrates or Aurelius.
Yeah,
Um, but it's
yeah.
obviously
Really good quote.
yeah, I've been following like a monk mode protocol, which is basically sort of like just a stage of deep
Nice.
focus within your work. And obviously one of those things is obviously like I've modified it to suit myself. So I create my trifecta of barriers that were holding me back, and then create my daily routine around that. And it's just a stage of deep focus. But now I like to buy nice things. You know, I've came from a lifestyle where, you know, there was times when even if it'd be not knowing where the next meal is going to come from, or just not being able to have something nice. So for me now, with the money and the things that are growing, I do like to buy myself nice things. But as I've sort of put that on hold, most of my most valuable things now are in the books that I own. Like I come in and I've got this bookcase, and that right there really is probably the most important and valuable thing that I own. Of all the coats and the bags, and that is all meaningless and synthetic, but the books and having access to, even just for example, I'd say Robert Greene is probably the most influential author and individual for me from a book at least. 40 Laws of Power is a game changer. I've started studying him a lot more in person, so I watch a lot of his interviews. He's a fucking dangerous person, Robert Greene. Dangerous person. He is.
Can't trust that man.
Yeah, he's interesting. Like, and he, and again, like again, someone as powerful and intimidating and just energetic as that. He started off in school. He didn't have any friends. I'm not too sure if he was overly bullied, but he didn't really fit in. So a lot of his upbringing was that he used to read. He just used to study wars. Like he knows every single historic battle on the inside and out. That's why for those that have read the 48 Laws of Power,
Wow.
there's always the law, and then there's always a transgression of the law, which goes back to like Shaolin or sort of like Middle Eastern sort of like wars and battles and emperors and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
it's understanding certain people, and these books have portals to. It's like you can go back in time. Like you've got Marcus Aurelius Meditations.
literally.
It's everyone will always say, "Oh, I wish I had a time machine." The fucking library, there's Waterstones. Amazon is a time machine. Go speak to Marcus Aurelius. Go speak to frigging anybody who has ever written a book that is influential, and you can learn from that.
That's it, bro. Books are so unique in that sense. They give you direct access to someone who might not even be alive, but you can get direct access to their thoughts. And if they are alive, like, truth be told, if you know, depending on the situation, you're probably not going to be able to network with this person, in person or whatever. So
Yeah,
use them to your advantage. They're so slept on, and I feel like it's just because they have that kind of stereotypical self improvement, read books, whatever, like typical cliche. But no, like they're really powerful. Books have the ability to change a person's life. I firmly believe that because it gives you a unique thing, which is a perspective shift. How else are you going to get that?
yeah,
You'd have to go through so many bad experiences to eventually reach that side. You can save yourself all that time, all that effort, learn directly from someone who's done all that and been there. You know.
yeah. I think as well, like the beauty of books is that again, going back to the whole like nothing is nothing until you put a label on it. Like a book is a book until you actually apply it. Like it's what's inside of the book that counts. You don't have to be reading a book. We've got audibles, we've got YouTube videos, you've got conversations with certain people. You've got, for example, the 48 Laws of Power. It's a big book. It took me a long time to get through. I've actually had to read it twice to understand it. But then you've also got the concise version, which is like maybe max 100 pages long. So there are so many different
Yeah.
fountains of knowledge that you can apply today. It doesn't have to be a book. It doesn't have to be like anybody listening. I can give you audible links to any book that you want. And again, then obviously we get into the whole power of applying it. You know, there was a time where I sort of used to go through a book a week, and coincidentally, it was the brokest and sort of least influential and impactful I've ever been in regards to my businesses. But I still read a lot now, but when I started to apply what I was learning, that's where the power comes from. You know, knowledge is worth nothing unless you don't apply it.
That's it, bro. There's a good saying actually. It's applied knowledge is power, and
Mm.
that's it. Otherwise, it's just empty words on a book. If you're just gonna read it, you're gonna forget about it. I mean, really and truly, I went through a similar stage where when I first got into reading, I would probably read like a book every 2 to 3 weeks, let's say. And those were the times when like the books just wouldn't sort of stick with me. I'd
Yeah,
just
yeah,
read it for the sake of reading it, put
yeah.
it back on the shelf, and nothing would really change.
Mm.
I highly recommend you guys to not just highlight when you're going through a book because that's basic. Make notes on it afterwards. Read it again and again and
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
Like really and truly, it should take you at least a year to like master a book in that sense. So, and look, you don't even need all these books as well. We're talking about it, but one good book which is studied properly and applied properly can be more beneficial to you than reading 100 books in a year. But you're reading for the sake of reading. So
Yeah.
do this whole thing wisely, guys.
Yeah, I think as well, most people think, like I was on about, like say with people like Tate, people think that if you like certain things, you have to like all of it. But a human, a book, we're all
Yeah,
comprised of so many different more things. Like, for example, there's 48 laws, and I'll keep mentioning that because it's easy and it works well with this point. But the 48 laws of power, there's 48 of them. There's a lot of stuff to cover in that book. I don't apply all of them laws. It was only really a couple of them laws that actually influenced me. One of my favorite ones being always speak less than necessary. So really, that's what a very small percentage of that
yes.
book that is impacted. When I say Robert Greene is a dangerous man, I think he's dangerous because of that one law. That is that 1% I took away from that book. I went to a bodybuilding show, and then I went to there was like a seminar bit afterwards, and it was Phil Graham, and he basically there was loads of stuff. He spoke for about 45 minutes, but the only thing that I can collectively remember is the idea of being a specialist rather than generalist as an online coach. You know, people pay if you've got a Rolls Royce, you pay and you take it to Rolls Royce, but you wouldn't pay to take it to your local garage because you know that they'll do a bodge job on it. So if you're a specialist, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter the caliber of people will pay that price as long as you are a specialist. You know, a sports physio will get paid more than like a local GP because they are specialists within their field. You know,
Mm,
and then if you're just a typical car garage, you'll only attract people that shop on price. So out of a 45 minute talk, that's all I took.
that's it.
And sometimes, you know, with a book, even with this podcast, nobody will. I'd be surprised even if people listen to the full way. Some people will, some people won't. But if there's one thing that you can learn from this podcast, just go out and apply it, and that's where the power in this series will come from.
Your life could literally change if you just start applying what you're learning. It's such a simple but potentially life changing concept.
Yeah,
And going back to what you said as well, bro, um, one of the core things I learned when I first got into like the freelance game and copywriting and email marketing is no one wants a jack of all trades. You have to be a
yeah,
specialist. You have to specialize in one area. Look at it this way, guys. Logically, right? Josh, if we were gonna go out and we're looking for a coat, all right,
mm,
let's say a coat, and it's a coat. Winter's here. I mean, not with global warming. It's been
yeah,
weirdly hot in the UK, but winter's here. It's colder and colder. We need a coat that's going to keep us warm.
yeah,
Are we going to go to the shop that's got a basic generic looking coat which is suitable for all seasons, or are we going to go to the shop and buy a coat that's specialized, designed for winter? That's how it appears to customers. Like you have to, if anyone's running a business or whatever, or you want to get into making money online, don't be a jack of all trades. Specialize in one thing. Don't offer more than one thing. Otherwise, it's just going to weaken the other offers that you have and that you're actually qualified in.
yeah, 100%. And again, it's something that I took from a recent mentor that I'm looking to work with and it's actually a forming reason as to why I created the Ascension Project because everything before then, if you don't have a focus as a coach, if you don't have a niche, a problem that you're solving, you're just going to
Mm.
become the typical one. Anybody that says the coaching industry is saturated is lying. And if you think like yourself, you just haven't found your niche. If you don't,
That's
you're
it.
literally just selling a training program and a check-in, and you're no different from the others. So not only are you going to be selling based on price, but you're going to be attracting people based on price. And you will see people that easily have disposable income of 350 a month try and barter you down or shop on price to get it for £50 a month because you don't have a focus and everybody's shopping for the same thing. But you know, you
Yeah.
reformulate, you reset, you readjust. You think, right, what are you good at? What are you passionate at? What can you solve? How can you sort of package that into a program to help people that have been in a similar position as you? And then obviously we birthed the Ascension Project, which is, you know, mastery over oneself, understanding and breaking down the self-limiting beliefs, and actually learning to become the best version of yourself rather than the just best physical self and doing what you think is right. It's knowing what's right and knowing what's right for you and applying that. So because I've got that focus now, and granted I work with less people, but I work with people that are a good fit for the brand because I have a focus. I can charge more because I solve a more direct problem. You know, if someone could
Mm.
come to me all these years ago when I was broken, needed validation, all of this, if someone could package me a product that could fix all of the hurt, all of the pain I was going through, I would sell my soul for that shit. So when you have when you solve the right problem, it does work.
That's it, bro. Keyword solving problems.
Yeah,
Some people would even argue that real wealth isn't in solving problems; it's in creating them. I've
Yeah,
seen
yeah,
that go around, and
yeah.
true to an extent. That's a little bit dark. I don't want to get into that, but
No,
um, no, it's true, man. You know what's really interesting? It's using your own experiences as well. Like we've gone through all this, we've been on the self improvement journey. We have unique mindsets and unique perspectives that have been formed through everything we've gone through. We could help people with that, you know, and that's
yeah,
just how you have to look at it. I mean, I guarantee anyone listening to this could actually have could actually build a business around something that they're specialized in. They just don't necessarily realize it.
mm,
You have to understand, like when you overcome things, you've overcome a problem. You're not the only one that's going to been, that's going to have experienced that problem. So there you go, monetize that. You know, it's
yeah,
there's so many ways you can coach people, and
yeah,
again, like bro, it's so important to position yourself where you're not like desperate for clients and you choose who you want to work with. I mean, that's correct me if I'm wrong, but that's one of the reasons I got into freelance anyway. I don't know about you, but
mm,
it's being able to choose who I work with. I hate, I still have my part time job, but it's not nice like being forced to like work with someone or for someone. I want to
yeah,
be able to choose that, you know, and have that freedom. And do I think they're a good fit for myself and the brand, etc. So it's it's not all about the money and stuff, man. It's one of the best aspects of freelance is choosing who you work with and making sure they're a good fit. Not all clients are good clients, if that makes sense.
no, of course. Look, the people that you work with are a reflection of your business. So if you're working with someone that, and it's not necessarily they have to be a bad person, but let's just say if you're a fat loss coach for specifically women over 40s and you work with a bodybuilding prep client and they've got a show in 6 weeks and you can't get them lean, that's going to have a reflection on your business.
Yeah, spot on, bro.
Yeah. And then, like I say, if you're working with the wrong people, that's going to have a reflection. That's going to affect your reputation. It's going to affect your sort of
Mm.
standard in which you work at. It's going to affect your ability to get the right clients. So you need to learn to sort of, find out who is right for you and work with them and them only.
Yes, very,
Uh,
very important. Particularly if you've got a vision for your brand and stuff, and you don't want to compromise it for a cheap paycheck you can get from anywhere.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And then you're just essentially cutting yourself short. Like most people that, like I said at the start, so if you understand that you can literally take yourself to high heights, but you stop yourself, you're only cutting yourself short. So it's the idea that you need to learn that you're capable of good things, and those good things will literally happen. But I guess it's sort of like a final note on the podcast now. We sort of spoke about sort of, you know, setting goals and where we are planning. What's sort of on the horizon for sort of, I know we're pretty much at the back end of this year, but even sort of looking into the next 12 months now, where is it that you sort of looking to set things out?
Good question, bro. I think I want to get back into the best shape possible, man. I was looking at like it's crazy when you're so used to something and that situation changes and you're 1 or 2 years in the future and you look back at that situation, you think like, Jesus, man. I was looking at pictures of myself when I was shredded and I was thinking like, fucking hell, man. Like, how did I do that, bro? And it's something that's like I've pondered as well because I'm more into boxing now. But oh, sorry, I'm more into boxing now. But like, I want to get back into prime shape as possible. It's
Mhm.
just finding a balance between those two. And one thing I'm gonna have to kind of get over is I love eating.
Yeah,
Cutting for me has always been like difficult. So
100%.
it's undertaking that cut and getting to those 1,500 calorie levels and stuff like that, doing that all over again. That's going to be difficult to do, but I've done it a few times now, so I believe in myself. But I'd say physique wise, that's that, and obviously just developing boxing, continuing with that, really, really liking it. I need to ask you actually how your journey's been going with that as well. And then in terms of business and stuff like that, so I think we briefly spoke about this. I've had a big realization recently, which is that back in the day, so guys, for context, I've done a few different things. Back in the day when the only thing I had in terms of like a product was an ebook, a guide to gains, I think I called it. And it basically covered everything that you'd need to know about bodybuilding in one concise guide. And I made it for students and it was quite popular, particularly because of the price and stuff like that. That was the only thing I'd ever monetized. And I still get messages to this people just saying like, thank you, bro. Like I applied this and I applied that. this was me before, this is where I am now. I'm sure you can relate, man. It's fulfilling on a different level. It's like, damn, man, like I impacted someone's life. That's fucking dope. And it
Yeah.
makes you feel really, really good. More than I've realized way more than like email marketing, which is what I'm doing at the moment. You know, I'm getting clients results, but I just don't. I look at it as a chore. It's not something that I particularly look forward to. It's not something I enjoy doing. Copywriting is a good skill, and I think anyone in business, particularly if you're need to have a good degree of copywriting. For men, particularly, it's what bro. I don't think we've talked about this, but I grew up in an all-female household. I didn't grow up with my dad really in my life for the most part. I grew up quite soft. There were a lot of things that I had to learn the hard way. Had to go through a lot of heartbreak. Had to teach myself all these things I could help solve. So yeah, I think masculinity coaching, self-improvement coaching, looking at setting up the business pretty soon actually. And aside from that, it's just growing in any way, shape, and form that I can, bro. Honestly, just looking to become better. I'm still 20, I'm 21 very, very soon, but I've got the rest of my life ahead of me, man. So I'm looking to make as many mistakes now as possible, in order to be in the best possible position come my 30s, 40s, and live the best quality of life possible. I'm sure you could probably relate to that, bro.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, even myself, sort of on the reset. Obviously, everything beforehand had just been bodybuilding focused, and I'll be honest, because obviously I got into the gym because I know I wanted to be good, but a lot of my passion actually came from, I watched these YouTube videos and then I would learn it and then I would apply it to my friends that I was training with, and they'd look at me and be like, "Wow, this is sick. Where'd you learn this?" And it was that knowledge being applied that gave me the passion for actually becoming a coach. So everything that I've always done, like even my love for bodybuilding, came from the forward correlation to, you bodybuild, you compete, you get more clients, you help more people. That was my own thought process. It went round and round. But as I sort of began to realize that the different areas that I was excelling in, I actually followed less of a bodybuilders and less coaches, and think, oh shit, there's more outside of this. So obviously I've reset everything now. The idea of boxing just simply links to combat. I think as a man, you need to learn to be, especially as a sort of like saying being a warrior in a garden, you can't be a warrior if you don't understand combat and the principles of that. So obviously I've done a lot of this doing Thai boxing, but boxing has been something that felt right for me. So again, this is where I'm just a student in the game, so still learning just basic like bag work, a lot of shadow boxing. I have 2 conditioning sessions a week, which are mainly just sort of getting into a high heart rate zone, staying at that high heart rate, but within boxing specific movements, so lots of drills. And then obviously we've got like the 5Ks, hopefully getting into the 10Ks. So it's mainly just now the reset that I've done. There's a lot to learn, still a student, but I can obviously learn, challenge myself, and then help other people. So still similar cycle, just more expanded, really.
That's how you should be, bro. It's every young man should be, and every young woman, just looking to grow, looking to improve, being open minded, being humble enough to admit that you're not an expert in particular fields, and just looking to get better. That's the whole improvement game, bro. We're gonna be at this for the rest of our lives.
100%.
I don't think we can ever reach a stage where we can definitively say we know everything and we're the best possible version we could be. There's always room for growth or for improvements. So just keep at it, man. I'm sure you're going to get to where you want to be, bro. I've known you now we were talking like 3 years now, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, like for what it's worth, the progression I've seen from back then to where you are now, super inspiring. Your commitment, and seeing things like that make me want to go even harder. So I'm sure whatever you set your mind to, bro, you're very much capable of achieving.
100%. I'm sure we'll be able to settle it and network it more when we come over and get that snooker game as well.
Yeah, yeah, really, bro.
Yeah,
That's gonna happen at some point.
I had a feeling that he'd like snooker for some reason. I just knew, I was like, this guy, he has to be a snooker player.
It's an Asian thing, bro. It's
I
an
think it
Asian
is,
thing. I'm sure growing up from.
Yeah.
It's all because we don't get those places down south, bro. Like
Yeah.
what they call like unit, not unit, or is it unit? The kind of what's the word? Not basement, bro. They have like snooker lounges where you can go like a fiver for an hour type thing. You get private lounge.
Yeah.
Like it looks similar to the place you were at the other day. Like we don't have that down south, so it's like I get my fill when I come up north. But yeah, no, for sure, bro. We got to do it at some point, and maybe like
Uh,
little friendly spar as well. just to test where
100%.
we're at. I think it'd be
Yeah,
quite
yeah,
good.
yeah. It could be good, yeah. But other than that, people, we've gone on quite a bit today, but lots of good take homes. So we'll wrap up the episode there, and this will not be the first podcast appearance that I can promise you. So we'll get into it, and thanks for listening, guys.